So how can I fix lifts over a simple phone call? So I suppose I've done these things for that long now. I kind of understand the logic of what's going on. And as I've said on a previous recording, our lifts don't really stop, okay? A switch is not working correctly, yeah? So I don't see that it's broken down. I don't see that the lift stopped. Something's not triggered properly in a switch. So again, because I understand the logic from so long, I can go through it over a pretty simple telephone call. If we look at and move on to tell me how others can gain these insights, well, I'm hoping through this particular video on what we might create, it is going to give us the insights and the ability to watch this small video and almost go through the process. And yeah, for sure, there'll be follow-on questions, but I'm pretty much thinking that this will do it based on all of the different jobs that I've been asked across the country, effectively. So when we build the panels, and this is sort of like we've probably built 6 at this point where we started to add this peephole. So there was a few out there that didn't have this, and then we started to put this into every panel. So anybody can go up to the panel, and there's a small hole normally on the left-hand side where you can look through and you can see a red readout. It's either going to have stop, U, or it's F8. So stop, and it could be flashing. So if stop's flashing, somebody's fundamentally pressed a button that they shouldn't have. I'm going to assume that stop is solid. Stop solid being displayed there means everything's good to go. If the lift does not go, I will pretty much guarantee that it's either at the very, very top or at the very, very bottom. And we won't go into it, but that's a phone call in issue. Yeah, because it's basically gone from normal operation into over trouble, and it's stopped because it's gone outside its parameters, and there's another reason going on. What the reason is, I don't know. Yeah, it's not something that I've experienced. I just know what it does. Yeah, in a normal operation, it's not something I've experienced. So if it's solid stop, the lift should be going. If it's not, I'd suggest a phone call. 2, if the lift is flashing you, basically that's telling me that a door is open. If the belief is that the doors are closed and it is still flashing, the switch hasn't been triggered correctly, and we need to look at that bottom door limit switch, the door close switch. Yeah. If it's F8 and the lift might be part of the way, that's a phone call back to me because something else mechanical is happening and this isn't electrical. Yeah. So when we tune the lifts, we put counterweight in, and I normally see that if we've got too much counterweight, so it's basically overloaded in some mechanical way. So again, it's a phone call in or a question on below the video here. So 5, the buttons. So we build the programs basically communicating through the buttons and the button colors and what have you. It's sort of like got flashing signals and doing a few things to try and raise our attention rather than just a solid light. So if I go to the multiple stops and the multiple blue buttons, so whether it's a 2-stop lift, a 3-stop, or a 4-stop, there'll be the relevant quantity of blue buttons. And they're basically working in conjunction with each other. So when our lift's doing a reference, let's say the power had gone off, and the lift now has to do a reference run, it goes back down slowly, looking for its ground level, so they can find its new 0. Yeah, when the power goes off, it loses its location reference, so it has to go looking for it. Now, if it's a 2-stop, a 3-stop, or a 4-stop, those blue lights will be flashing. And over where I said the peephole in the panel, it will be counting a negative number, somewhere in the order of -250 to -300. And that's actually the motor going down and letting the mesh down. Now, if I was on a phone call at this point in time, I would say, great stuff, fantastic. It's looking for itself. It's moving. I'm going to say at the moment in my mind that the lift is coming down and it is doing what it's meant to do at this point in time. Let's now say that the lift's gone to the bottom. This is something that I've just experienced recently. The lift's gone to the bottom. It should see one of the bottom switches and it should come up again. There's two, you can't always see in what I'm about to say. You can't always see from the bottom, but some of them we've left like another little peephole so you can see these switches, and you can test now with a multimeter or what have you. But basically now the lift's come down, it would have gone negative, 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 it would have gone slightly positive, and it should be displaying stop. Now that it's displaying stop, the blue lights should also be solid on the ground level, the base. So we've got stop here, we've got solid blue here. I'll call it fantastic. Now the door should open. Do the doors not open? Okay. Well, I would suggest that the bottom blue light is flashing at the moment because it's not getting the signal to say it's safe to open the doors yet. So I'm going to assume now, because everything's set up correctly, I'm going to assume now that the door does open. It'll go automatically open. You can stop it partway opening by hitting the close button, but it'll continue all the way open until it sees its top door sensor, and a little blue light will come on that top door sensor. Now I bring that attention towards the top blue sensor because the door will be flashing, but the top blue sensor needs to be triggered to turn the green light off. So whilst the door is actually opening, the green button is on and the amber light is flashing as it opens. When it sees the top, it turns the green light off. So I kind of know that there's something going on if the door's open and the green light's still on. Okay, let me open the door and I'll stop the video for a minute. And now I've hit the top and I'll keep watching, and my next comments are that really now the green light should be switched off. Now, if the green light's switched on, I'm going to ever so strongly with conviction say that 100% the little blue light's not actually on at the top door. And what's happened there is it hasn't seen whether it's movement, whether it's what have you, but the top door sensor isn't quite close enough. And the other day we worked out if we just move the switch a little bit, the switch was able to see. Yeah, the door wasn't quite coming up as far as what it used to for some reason. That could be anything, but it was slightly out of adjustment. We moved that, and now it could see its location sensor. Everything worked. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much, if I may, ticking those boxes. So now we're closing the door. We've got our hand on the green button. We're closing the door. If we take our hand off the button, it will stop after a few seconds. We normally these days have a delay in the door close so that when it gets all the way down, we'll actually force it shut. Yeah. Now, when I say force it shut, it's making sure it's shut. It's making sure the sensors, everything like that is actually engaged, rather than as soon as it sees the switch and it's still got a gap, even though it's seen the switch, we want to drive further forward and really close that door up. So again, now I'm going to assume now that the lift is running. If the lift is not running and the door is closed, I'm going to steer the person, and the door and that light is solid. I'm going to steer back around to the panel and say, have we got solid U? Yes, no. Yes, great, everything should be working. No, let's check another door, but let's try and drive the lift up to that other level. It should work at this point in time. Yeah. So the only other thing that would stop it from moving now is flashing red light, which is the emergency stop, and somebody might have pushed that button at any floor level. So we need to check that. If it's had loss of power, there's another push button in the later models, which is sort of, again, after around about number 5 lift we built. There's a reset button on the panel, which you have to push. So if that emergency stop had been pushed in, if we'd lost power through the night, then we really have to push that reset button for the safety circuit to be intervened. If somebody had pushed the emergency, it's not just turn it back on. It's the bigger question is, why was the emergency hit? And before we reactivate it, we want to make sure we know what we're doing effectively.